Hello again. I want to speak today about something of which we are all aware but have been taught not to see or remark upon. This is a peculiar state of affairs in which we automatically conceal from ourselves what is going on in order to distort our perception of the nature of the world around us. I shall not attempt to explore the psychology of this almost universal practice in the West, but I rather wish to strip away the ideology and deception so that we can, if only even for a few minutes, view the world as it is, rather than as we would like it to be. I remarked the other day that the murder rate in the island nation of Jamaica in the Caribbean is 650 times as great as that in the similar island nation of Singapore in East Asia. We're invited to explain this enormous disparity by referring to culture and family traditions, but this seems inadequate to account for such a vast difference in the propensity of people to kill each other. These two countries illustrate with great clarity a fundamental feature of the human world, which is that some things are many times more common among those of East Asian ancestry than they are among those whose origins lie in sub-Saharan Africa, and that when considering statistics relating to these matters, people of white European heritage always seem to be found between those two extremes. I'm speaking now of things as varied as schizophrenia, academic achievement, IQ, murder rate, athletic ability, rates of cancer, and testosterone levels. So many and varied are these things, and I've given only a random sample, that the idea of culture being a good and sufficient explanation for what is seen appears to be quite absurd. One point which must also be borne in mind is that when people from the Far East or from sub-Saharan Africa form communities in other parts of the world, these things are then observed there too. That is to say that the number of murders committed by members of different races, the academic achievement, rate of schizophrenia and so on, seems to continue wherever these people find themselves. So it is that Chinese people do well in examinations like the British A-levels and the American SAT, while black people do poorly on both. White people achieve somewhere in the middle of the two extremes. In the description to this video, I give a link to the ethnicity of those getting 3 A-levels at grade A in Britain in 2023. It will be seen that 27.4% of students of Chinese ancestry managed this, but just 7.9% of black students. For white teenagers, the percentage was 13.8, which falls between the Chinese and the black students. This is perfect illustration of the gradient about which I am talking. Another would be levels of testosterone in the body. Young black men have higher levels than white youths, who in turn have more than those young men of Chinese origin. There is that gradient again, that slope, with sub-Saharan Africans at the bottom, white people a little higher up, and people of East Asian heritage, Chinese people, Koreans, for example, at the top. I give a couple of references to research on this matter in the description to this video. This particular gradient may have some bearing also on both levels of violent crime and also athletic and sporting prowess. A propensity for violence and aggression is linked with testosterone levels as is success in competitive sports. Both of these also follow that familiar gradient, of course. Viewers might like to ask themselves why so many footballers, boxers, basketball players and athletes seem to be black, and why so few appear to be Chinese. Is this too entirely down to culture and family background, the viewers suppose? What about schizophrenia? Black people in Britain are between 6 and 9 times as likely to develop this illness as white people. People of East Asian ancestry, on the other hand, are less likely to develop schizophrenia than either black people or white. Here, at least, we can be sure that the cause is biological rather than social. Those of black African heritage have a far greater polygenic risk score for the illness than those of other ethnicities. In Britain, black people are far more likely to end up in prison than white people, while Chinese people are least likely of all to be sent to prison. The same thing applies to home ownership, with black people less likely to own their own homes than white people, and Chinese people more likely to own their homes than either black or white people. I have by no means exhausted the list of such differences, but I think the viewers will perhaps be getting the point. I expect that many people will be able to add to my observations here with a few examples of their own of this same gradient at work. What is curious here is that we see this at work not only when comparing one country to another, as I did with Jamaica and Singapore, but as I said, also with expatriate communities living in other countries. So it is that the murder rate of Singapore, the country in which East Asians live, is replicated among those from East Asia living in Britain or the United States. And the high murder rate of Jamaica is duplicated among Jamaicans in London, say. There's nothing novel about my descriptions of this gradient. It's not some fantastic discovery which I have made and am now sharing with the world. The truth of the matter is, everybody in Britain who has had dealings with black people and people of Chinese ancestry knows all this perfectly well. They know that gangs of Chinese youths are not likely to run amok with machetes, but are more probably to be found in the local library studying for some examination or other. All the stuff I've spoken of is common knowledge. The odd thing is, though, that people never speak about it out loud. You won't find anybody talking about this gradient openly. We've been conditioned to self-censor and not refer even obliquely to these various phenomena, lest somebody accuse us of being racially prejudiced. Instead, we try to persuade ourselves that the world is not as we observe it, or that perhaps we are being racist when we notice things. This is a sad state of affairs, for it means that we are trying to ignore reality and hide the real world behind some elaborate fantasy. And that's not at all a healthy way to live our lives.